For anyone who's a part of Leafs Nation, you know, there's this core truth we all have to face. Yeah. It's that persistent, just agonizing feeling of being on the edge of greatness, but never quite getting there.
And that feeling, that frustration, it's just getting louder now, isn't it? Because the team is, well, it's at another critical point.
Right.
The real question that everyone, the front office, and you listening, has to ask is this.
Yeah.
Are they finally ready to make the bold moves needed to actually win?
Or are they just going to repeat the same mistakes we've seen plague them for years?
Exactly.
So today we are diving deep into that very question. And we're not talking about minor tweaks. We're talking about fundamental structural changes.
Yeah, this is about team identity.
We've gone through some really fervent analytical material that pinpoints not just the problem, but a very specific, maybe even a non-negotiable solution.
And that would be the reacquisition of a former prospect, Mason Marchment.
So our mission is pretty straightforward. We're going to unpack all the speculation around the Leafs' current roster, really analyze that specific need for a physical net front guy in their top six.
And then dissect the whole strategic argument for bringing Marchment back, a guy that, they wants to let walk away. It's a fascinating look at opportunity meeting, well, pure necessity.
Okay, so let's really dig into this, starting with what everyone sees, that glaring void in the current roster.
The source material is, let's brutally honest here. Despite having world-class superstar talent, that top six forward group is fundamentally incomplete.
It's missing that grit, isn't it? That hard edge that takes a good team and makes it a championship team.
For sure. And the analysis really frames the current output of that group as simply unacceptable for a team with Stanley Cup ambitions.
And the most immediate, I guess, piece of evidence for that is the failure of that big offseason experiment.
Oh, absolutely. General Manager Brad Treliving, he made a pretty significant gamble bringing in Matthias McSally.
The thinking was clear. Inject some physicality, add scoring depth, and get that sandpaper you need in the playoffs.
A sound plan on paper, but the result. Yeah. The analysis we're looking at calls the experiment a spectacular failure.
And that's not just hyperbole. I mean, look at how he's been used.
Right. McSally has been a healthy scratch. More often than not, he's in the press box instead of on the ice. And crucially, he just has not found any chemistry with Matthews and Marner.
And when you bring in a player for that specific role and the role stays empty, the ripple effect is huge. It leaves what the source calls a gaping hole.
It does. It puts so much pressure on the other lines to compensate, and you're missing that consistent physical element where you need it most.
And the clock is always ticking.
Always. The team is, as the source puts it, barreling towards another critical stretch of the season. Their first attempt to fix the problem, McSally, has crashed and burned.
So the urgency to find that elusive missing piece is at a fever pitch right now.
Yeah, and this isn't just about a player going through a cold streak. The assessment is that the top six structure itself is fundamentally flawed for a deep playoff run.
Which brings us directly to the name at the center of all this analysis, Mason Marchment. And for Leafs fans who've been around, that name, it comes with a real sting of regret.
It really does.
Absolutely. I mean, his whole journey is a perfect case study in an organizational miscalculation. He wasn't some random player. He was homegrown.
Right. He signed his entry-level deal back in 2018, developed with the Marlies. He was right there.
He even got a call-up, played 4 games for the Leafs in that 2019-20 season. You saw flashes of what he could be.
And then came what the source calls the monumental miscalculation.
The trade. In 2020, they send Marchment to the Florida Panthers for Dennis Melgen.
In hindsight, it's just a textbook example of being short-sighted.
To be generous, Melgen's time in Toronto was forgettable. He did very little, and then he was gone.
But Marchment, he goes to Florida and just absolutely exploded, defied every single expectation anyone had for him.
It was that classic late bloomer story. He puts up an astounding 47 points in just 54 games in that 2021-22 season.
Just incredible numbers. And what the Leafs missed was that he was a power forward who just needed a little more time to put it all together at the NHL level. He matured into the exact player they now desperately need.
And he proved it wasn't a fluke either. He went to Dallas and was a consistent, reliable force. Even now in Seattle, he's a solid contributor, 13 points in 27 games. This wasn't a flash in the pan.
You know, what's so fascinating here is how this whole thing is framed. The source doesn't just see it as a bad trade. It's a painful, expensive lesson about patience in player development.
That it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Sometimes the best asset is the one you already have in your system if you're just willing to wait. And now, in this bizarre twist, they might actually have a chance to correct that very mistake.
So let's get into the tactics of it. Let's break down why he's being called the perfect fit for this lineup. Because, to be fair, they do have some physical players already.
They do, and that's an important point. You've got Matthew Nyes on the first line. He's an imposing guy. He goes to the tough areas.
You've got Dakota Joshua on the third line, bringing that energy.
And Steven Lawrence is, a dependable penalty-killing workhorse on the fourth line. The team isn't soft everywhere.
But the analysis really zeroes in on that one specific problem area, the second line, with John Tavares and William Nylander. The source says there is an undeniable void right there with them.
And that void is the absence of a relentless engine, a puck retriever. Tavares and Nylander are all about skill and space.
Right.
What they don't have is that guy who consistently drives into the hard areas, wins those 50-50 puck battles, and just creates that precious space for the skill guys to work.
We've seen some flashes from a younger player like Easton Cowan, which is promising, but the argument for a Stanley Cup run is that you can't rely on just flashes.
No, you need consistent depth scoring, and more importantly, that unwavering physical presence that doesn't disappear in May and June.
So that's where Marchment comes in. He's seen as the critical counterweight to all that skill.
Yes. Think of what he does. He's a true power forward. He digs pucks out of corners. He uses that big 6'4" frame to screen goalies, which is just essential in the playoffs.
It's that much-needed net front presence.
And in those tight one-goal playoff games where every shot is contested, the difference is often the guy standing in front of the net creating chaos. Marchment lives there.
So he's not just another scorer, he's a strategic weapon.
That's how the source frames it. A disruptor, a grinder, a guy whose presence makes life absolutely miserable for opposing defensemen and goalies.
He forces them to pay attention to him, which opens up those tiny lanes that players like Tavares and Nylander can exploit. It's the definition of a complementary player.
Okay, but I have to push back a little here just to play devil's advocate. The source calls him the perfect fit, but his numbers right now, 13 points in 27 games. Is that really the production of a missing piece for a cup contender, or is this a little bit of nostalgia?
That is a fair and, I think, a critical question. And the analysis tackles it by saying you have to look beyond the raw points. You have to look at the type of game he plays.
The process over the production.
Exactly. The Leafs don't need another 30-goal scorer on that line. They need a process player. His value is in extending offensive zone time, in winning pucks back. He's the engine that lets the Ferraris run.
That's a benefit that doesn't always show up on the score sheet, but you feel it on every shift. He changes the whole dynamic.
Okay, and this is where it gets really, really interesting for me. Because the strategic case for getting him is almost as strong as the tactical one.
Yeah, this isn't your typical trade deadline scenario.
Right. Usually a player like this would cost a king's ransom. You'd have to gut our future, trade away top prospects and picks.
But the argument is that Marchment represents a uniquely intelligent, potentially easier, and far more palatable acquisition.
And it all comes down to his contract, right?
100%. He has just 1 year remaining on his current contract after this season ends. That is the leverage point. It's absolutely crucial.
So explain that a little more. Why does that 1 year make such a difference?
Well, because the Seattle Kraken, he's basically a pending unrestricted free agent. They're facing the risk of losing him for nothing in the offseason.
So they're more motivated to make a deal now?
They're much more immutable to moving him, as the source says.
Yeah.
They might be willing to negotiate a deal that doesn't require a haul of prospects and draft picks, because they're trading an expiring asset for future value. It's just smart business for them.
So you get him for this season and next, meaning he's not a short-term rental.
Right.
But he also doesn't handcuff the organization for years to come with some massive cap-crippling deal.
Precisely. It's described as a strategic surgical strike. You're fixing an immediate critical need in your top six without mortgaging the future. It's a high-impact move with manageable risk.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's all about playoff readiness.
For sure. Marchment's game is it's tailor-made for postseason hockey. He's the type of player who actually gets better when the games get tougher.
And from an organizational, maybe a symbolic level, this is a huge opportunity for Brad Treliving.
Oh, massive. It's a chance to correct a past misstep, a mistake made by the previous front office that has kind of haunted the fan base ever since Marchment blew up in Florida.
So bringing him back is more than just filling a roster spot. It's a declaration of intent.
It is. It signals to the league, and more importantly to Leafs Nation, that this front office is serious, that they're willing to admit to and rectify past mistakes to win.
It's about taking a regret and turning it into a real competitive advantage.
Exactly right.
So at the end of the day, what does this all mean? I think the core conclusion from the sources we've looked at is really strong. It's that Mason Marchment is the optimal solution.
The catalyst, a perfect match of skill, need, and crucially, opportunity.
He's the guy who could elevate this team from just being a playoff hopeful to a legitimate, feared contender. The chance to push them over the edge is right there.
And the pressure is on. They've seen the problem for years, and now the analysis has identified a very specific player who solves it without compromising their long-term health.
Which leaves us with the final, I think, provocative thought. In a league that's defined by margins, by split-second decisions and inches, can the Toronto Maple Leafs really afford to let another opportunity, another potential game changer, just slip through their fingers again?
Can they afford to repeat the same mistake they made all those years ago?
That's the crossroads they're at. This is where past regrets have to inform future championships.